Hello, everyone. Welcome to our session here on best practices for communicating to the public during a disaster with hub and enterprise sites. My name is Jeff Barani. I'm on Esri's public safety team. I'm the tech lead for emergency management in our disaster response program. Really, what we want to talk to you today about is best practices and lessons learned from the many hub sites that were stood up in response to COVID-19. Just an amazing amount of work that's been done across the user community at many different scales of government with local, state, federal, private sector, and international as well. So many great uses of hub that we've witnessed, as a community over the past, couple of months, and really excited to share with you some lessons learned. We'll take a look at some of these sites, today, and get a better sense of some of the things that were, done, and hopefully give you a sense of some of the things that you can do within your own organization or jurisdiction to share information, put that information in context, and get that out in a better way. There are many places where a lot of these, sites are indexed. Obviously, the Esri Hub is one particular site of where these are indexed. Also, the Hub site has a specific gallery of users. So the link that's put here indexes many of the Hub sites that were stood up specifically for COVID-19. So as the Hub team likes to say, you can find your Hubspiration of many of the sites that are out there based on the great work of the user community. But before we get started, just wanted to kind of spend a few minutes to level set on what ArcGIS Hub is. So, the textbook definition here, ArcGIS Hub is a cloud-based engagement platforms that lets organizations work more effectively with their communities and really kind of to do that in a data-driven way. So, from the high level, that's really what Hub is all about. Hub comes with every license and every subscription of ArcGIS Online. So every subscription of ArcGIS Online has a Hub Basic, license that's a part of it. There's also Hub Premium. That's an additional, annual cost that comes along with it, and we'll talk about what that means here in a few slides. From a high level architecture perspective, the hub just sits on top of ArcGIS Online, and it provides you the capabilities to stand up sites and pages around specific initiatives or different projects and the like, and we'll see what that looks like here in a few minutes. Additionally, the traditional kind of open data type capabilities that you've come to expect over the years. Hub Premium brings along additional functionality, and the main aspects of that are the community identities, being able to have a separate org to bring in the community as a part of that, and that brings along extra functionality like followers and teams and initiatives, and the like. So that's really kind of the main differences between the two, and we'll see what that looks like. So here is what just a conceptual architecture of really what the community org brings as a part of the process from a Hub Premium perspective. The idea that you can have a community org that buddies up with your kind of normal employee org, if you will, to allow for engagement with various community members. And so really what this means is you're have the ability to give community members an ArcGIS Online identity. They can either use social logins for this or use the normal kind of built-in named user accounts and have them participate in some of your initiatives, whether that's a small business initiative to see if businesses are open or the like, or essentially ways to help deputize members of your community to participate from a GIS perspective. And they may not necessarily think of it that way, but from a GIS manager, GIS analyst perspective, that's really what this is all about, is giving those community members the ability to do things like collect forms in Survey 123 or Quick Capture and the like, and have that feedback into some of the work that you're already doing. And we'll see some more examples of that here in just a few more slides. So how can you use Hub? So just in a general sense, kind of beyond COVID-19, what are some of the ways to think about how you can, use Hub? So I like this guidance that the Hub team has shared with the community in terms of 4 ways to think about using Hub. So the first way is to help publish open data and publish open data sites and do that, quickly and effectively. This is obviously kind of a traditional use of Hub, but that's one of the main ways that it's used. The second way is to have public sites to help the public improve understanding on specific topics, and we'll show what that means here in just a sec. The third aspect or way to think about using Hub is from the perspective of having trusted collaboration with your community. And this could be in on a specific, topic like homelessness or the opioid epidemic, or from a disaster perspective, community damage assessment and the like, and bringing in additional information from trusted members of the community. And the fourth and final way to think about using Hub is really from an initiative perspective. How can you work collaboratively to make a positive impact, in a specific area of interest, as the slide says here? And we'll show what this means here in a few slides in terms of what initiatives really look like. So actually during COVID-19, 4 new initiatives were set up by the Esri's solutions team and Hub's team to help you know the community get started very quickly in having initiatives, specific sites, set up around, various areas. And then additionally, the emergency response initiative was released just a few weeks ago, and later on in the presentation, we'll show what that, looks like. So to kind of give more context to the 4 ways of using Hub here, we wanted to share a couple of examples of what that looks like. So first, we wanted to start with looking at some public data or open data examples, and have to share information here on Highfield Open. So this was, a website that was set up, several years ago by the Department of Homeland Security to really share information on some of the standard, typical critical infrastructure type data sets that were public. Things like, fire stations and schools and that type of thing. So really, got information out and really allowed the community to start to leverage this data more broadly inside their application. So this open data approach is really popular and something that's been around for 10 or 15 years. And so here, this is a great example through the Highfield sites of making this available. And then from past events, they've stood up versions of this specific for a disaster. Highfield for Harvey, Highfield for Irma from the hurricanes from a couple of years ago. So to really kind of help focus the community on some of the available data sets that are out there around a specific event. So as we mentioned, open data sites is one way to think of using Hub. Another way is from a public sites perspective to help improve understanding on a specific topic. And I thought this example from the County of Monterey and their multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan was a great example of that, and really unique example that we've seen in the community. We hope more communities are like the County of Monterey and sharing their hazard mitigation plan and the updates to that process in kind of a public way. So having a destination website here that explains the topic and what's going on, and then also providing additional maps, data, and content to go along with that kind of particular process. As we mentioned, involving the community and working in a trusted and collaborative way with the community is another aspect and way in which Hub can be used. And one example of that we'd like to highlight is through the coronavirus recovery solution templates, and that kind of set of materials to help the community get going with quickly. And there's 2 aspects of that are important from the trusted collaboration perspective. One is from a wellness check perspective. So there's some specific solution templates that are set up there to do wellness checks within your community. And the second is from engaging with small businesses to make sure that their listings are up to date, and the like. And so I thought these were some great examples to really kind of think about in terms of how you can leverage the community identities that are provided by Hub Premium to engage with external contributors in these kind of 2 ways, whether it be volunteers conducting wellness checks or those business owners. Again, this is some of the features that Hub Premium, provides through the additional community org that are provided. And so here's just a quick look at some of the specific solution templates that are available that come with these solution templates to allow you to engage with the community in your work, whether that's a wellness check and being able to fill out the form here, or the wellness check report using uh, you know, various apps here. And really the idea here is now the community members leverage their community identity. So they're tagged with the specific, information here as a part of their work, tagged with the identity. So if you have questions about a specific form or element that's filled out, you can go back and check with them. So, in the similar type of fashion, from a business owner perspective as well, you can issue community identities and have small businesses report on their kind of listing status. What are their hours of operation? Are there any modified, operational issues that they need to communicate, with the public, and making sure that they can get that information out, obviously to help support the economic recovery in kind of a particular area. So I thought these were two great examples to share with you today to maybe help you think about how can you use Hub Premium and the community org that's provided there to really engage in a more trusted way with your stakeholders, with your community members. And so these are just two examples. I'm sure. And hopefully you're thinking of other potential ways that you can engage in your own jurisdiction or organization, if you so choose. Now, the fourth way about using Hub is really from an initiative perspective. And the good news here is, to get started with this, you can really think about, okay, how can you repurpose what you already have? How can you take your apps and data that you may already have as a part of your Arctis Online org and really configure those in an initiative site or page that really kind of connects with your program goals or the goals of the leaders of your kind of organization. So another way to kind of think about that is really helping to bridge the gap in terms of putting your apps and data in context. So for example, if there's official government website out there, obviously in this case from a COVID-19 perspective, and there's a lot of great apps and maps and data that the community has, or you may have inside your own organization. And the key thing here is to and really to think about Hub, and really I hope one of the key take home messages that you get from this presentation is Hub is really a way to give context to your apps and data. So if you look at things on the right-hand side, you may traditionally have, groups set up with inside your Arctis Online org around a specific, topic or program area. And Hub really helps you put those apps and data, in context and have greater understanding about, the purpose, the objectives of that, information. So again, I really hope you take that away from this presentation in terms of, really the value that Hub can provide to your organization. This is one key way to think about it. So now let's spend a few minutes here on looking at hub sites in action and hub sites in action to support the response to COVID-19. So the first example that we wanted to look at here is from the municipality of Anchorage. So this is one of the more popular local government sites, and just to spend a few minutes here exploring what they've put together. So you can see already they're very cognizant about what they need, the information that they need to get out to the public, and have different languages set up and different resources from to really identify and connect with their community members. They've used statistics cards here to show not only the active cases from the municipality of Anchorage perspective, but also at a statewide level how things are going from the COVID-19. They've also made good use of pages here as a part of their hub site. So for example, if we look at things from a roadmap to reopening perspective, they've included the additional narrative and details about how things are going from an reopening perspective. I really like this operations dashboard that they put together. They're trying to really kind of connect with the community in a real traffic light type of way. Red, green, yellow, what's the status at a couple of different views of information, and that's what they're showing here, and trying to communicate very clearly with the community. If you need more details about this particular dashboard, you can click on it and be presented with an alternative view of the information that gets into more details beyond kind of the traditional kind of traffic light, level. So I thought this was a great example of a hub site of really kind of targeted way of communicating with your community. The city of New Haven, Connecticut, that's another, great example. There was a recent webcast and presentation that was done specifically on this site and, lessons learned from COVID-19. So it's another great resource for you to share. But, the message from the mayor, getting the case information out, having targeted information that shares information, and really, like we as we discussed, putting the apps in context. So for example, if you need to find the testing center locations, you can link out to that directly, and find other resources that are a part of this particular website. Obviously, integrating social media and videos as a part of a hub site is certainly some of the features and common ways with its use. Communicating clearly with the community in terms of the public, messaging in a real simple and easy to understand way. So another, great, example here to share. The next example to look at is from the state perspective. So one great example from the state perspective for COVID-19 is from the state of Maryland. And actually, first of all, I wanted to highlight that they have a specific URL set up for this particular hub site. So that's one of actually the features of ArcGIS Hub, is you can have a dedicated, URL for your hub site. And really, what that helped do in Maryland is, if you is help focus the community on a single destination of a place to go to get coronavirus, information. So in the true form of the word, hub, it was really the hub of the wheel, if you will, to bring in lots of different, information, and served as the main destination for folks to go to find out information here in the state of Maryland. Obviously, if the case information here and seeing how that's, trending, over time, additional, details on, statistics, getting out some of the public, messaging on, symptoms and connecting, and frequently, asked questions. Specific topic areas for the public to explore in a more kind of detailed way, really, again, kind of conveying the message from a public information perspective or from a public health perspective on how to slow the spread. So a very nice way that they've put all of this information together in terms, including social media, to get information out to the public in a centralized fashion. The next example that we wanted to look at here is from the state of Kentucky. So, working together here, the community, pulled together this, hub site, sharing, key apps, data sets, resources, from across the state. And one of the things that I wanted to highlight and I really appreciate about the work that was done in the state of Kentucky is the manner with which they work together as a team here, as it says, Team Kentucky. And you can see, the list of the various, state agencies, the cabinet agencies from the Commonwealth of Kentucky that all kind of contributed and worked together as a part of this, hub site. So for this, I really think of this as, the hub site for them must have been kind of the almost technical manifestation of their coordination strategy, if you will. And so I think that was one, key way to think about the way that they kind of, work together as a community and as a group, to bring together all of this, information. The next example is from the state of Ohio. Again, a similar fashion, sharing, case information, death information, looking at the various, geospatial data feeds that are out there, and from across the community. Additional hub sites that were, put together, and really kind of giving a nod to some of the other resources that are out there, like the state of, Kentucky, linking out to additional authoritative, data sources like, GeoHealth, the FEMA site, Esri's disaster response program, and the like. And really, the idea of here from this particular hub being, additionally pointing to other, resources. Hub sites that are stood up don't need to be mutually exclusive of others. They can really be, different windows into different, organizations, different sites that are stood up, specifically. So I thought they did a really great job of, highlighting some of the, not only the information that's available within the state, but other resources, beyond the state borders that may be of interest to those that were coming to find information here from within the state of Ohio. So next, looking at that, specifically, let's take a look at, the FEMA site that they reference. So in this case, this was password protected, so the many people had access to this from, federal, state, local perspective, and from emergency management agencies or public health and the like. So there was not shared publicly, but there was wide access, given the appropriate, levels of government that were, available here. So a couple of things that I wanted to highlight here that I thought were really important about the work that FEMA did is one, they were looking for ways to encourage, frequent visits to the site. The idea of curation of hub sites is, critically important, and I think, for a hub site to be successful, that's really important. So one concept that they implemented here is the idea of a map of the week. So in this case, the map of the week is from Department of Health in South Carolina. So every week, a new content would be, added in here. Another key feature of this site is really connecting with the kind of executive messaging. So in this case, early on, the FEMA administrator talked about, some of the key things that, states and governments should be doing, looking at things like, testing center locations, like the work that GIS Corps has done, or mitigation measures, alternate care sites, vulnerable populations, and the like. So they really try to connect with the messaging from the, senior decision making level, executive level, and manifested that here in their hub site. Additionally, looking at kind of, featured content, so the featured content here would change from, week to week as a part of their, curation strategy. The other key thing here is the ability to look at the entire collection. And we saw, many examples of hub sites, linking out to or including this kind of, filtered gallery or category gallery of information. And this really connects back to the governance of your Arctis Online sites and looking at, separating the data out by different, categories, whether that's, from a geographic perspective, looking at which, state level, or what kind of the swim lanes of information that people wanted to organize the data and information by. I thought that was a really kind of great use of the galleries kind of in connection with, the hub sites to really allow you to discover some of the key data sets that you need and were important as a part of this work. Additionally, from the curation perspective, the ability to submit, data. So, having individuals curate the sites is, kind of critically important. But additionally, if you wanted to submit, information they provided with Survey 123, a mechanism to raise awareness about other apps, data sets, resources that may be available from the community, and give folks the ability to kind of get that in. So I really liked kind of the crowdsourcing approach, almost, if you will, or the GIS sourcing approach, if you will, to get information, back in. Next, kind of on our tour of hubs here, is the Esri hub site that was set up for COVID-19. So early on, the team, settled on hub as a mechanism to centralize access for the community to get maps, data sets and applications specifically for, COVID-19. And again, curation was a key part of this, and changing the content as the response evolved, as resources evolved, and new data sets and apps became available. This site was, kept up to date with all of this, information. And even kind of new innovative approaches were brought, along the way, such as this, indexing app. So this, indexing app here was a way to look at, all of the apps kind of across either the globe or across the United States. Basically looks at the key elements inside of an specific Arctis Online group, and then allows you to explore the content, based on, different, jurisdictions. So here we can see, for example, all the resources specifically for the country, of Argentina here, and we can see, across the top here in the different tabs, the different, websites or apps that were stood up, and then giving folks the ability to copy these things out and explore these in a more kind of dedicated automated way. So, that was, one kind of innovative, approach here. Also, very, clear, try to get clear messaging here in terms of, purpose. Get started, get data, get updates, make things, really simple from a messaging perspective to, again, kind of put the apps and data in context and get this, information out. Share this with the community, both in terms of apps, data, featured story maps, and the like, as well as, having a specific page set up here for, resources. As we discussed, there were many, solution templates that came out, along the way during the response to COVID-19. So indexing some of the key solution templates here on this, resources page, consolidating, best practices, learning resources, other initiatives from the community, like the great work of GIS Core, and the like. So this idea of a resource page, is critically important, as a part of all of this. So the examples that we've shared, so far have mostly been along the lines from, local, state, federal government within inside the United States. But I'd be remiss without highlighting the great work that's being done from the international community as well. So here's just a couple of, international hub sites that we, wanted to share. So this is one particular site from Indonesia. We can see, obviously I don't understand the language here, but I can really, even at a glance, see the case information shared in a similar way, having maps and data sets and information from other, jurisdictions all centralized in this, hub site. So to me, this is a great example from an international perspective. So in this case, this is looking at things from the Indonesian, perspective. Also, our Esri Americas team, our international, our team that supports, international distributors, help set this site up that really kind of index the great work across, North and South America, and all the great work that was being done in each of the, various, countries to consolidate, maps, apps, and, resources. So in each, country, we can look at all of the great work that was done, kind of across the community. So again, just highlighting, and it's very, inspirational here to see the work kind of across the community. And then finally, the last example here is looking at things from looking at the response from the COVID-19 perspective in Somalia. Here we can see, the information and context again with various, videos that orient the visitors to the site on the key information. We can see the dashboards that are embedded here with the case counts and, triage sites and population movement, and the like. And so, really kind of putting this information in context from the perspective here from World Health Organization here working specifically in the country, of Somalia. So obviously lots of kind of great examples here kind of in this tour. There's, too many, sites to kind of tour through, but we just wanted to kind of give a sampling of some of the great work that's being done here kind of across the community. So now just kind of reflecting back on, some best practices that we were observed, kind of during that tour of hub sites. We have a list of things here that to discuss. So the first three are really kind of in a group. So I think one kind of key best practices here is to be clear in purpose. Obviously with COVID-19 that became, critically important. We were focused on, getting information, out to the community and on the, current case counts, current information and messaging to kind of keep the kind of community safe. So that became self-evident in many cases from a COVID-19 perspective. But as you look forward to thinking about using Hub from, some of your own for your own purposes and, different use cases and disaster types, perhaps, I think that, that best practice in terms of being clear on purpose is critically important. Another key message here is to identify your audience. In many cases, the audience of the websites were communicating directly with the public. So Another part of the best practice here is assembling your team that's going to help you with your work. And so, especially if you're working on sites with the public, it will be important to have communication staff or public information officer staff working alongside the GIS staff to help you message to the community in a clear way in terms of the purpose, the key information, and really getting additional assistance and working across your organization to help put that the information and context and getting that out in a simple way for the public. So the team is important. Not only the GIS staff working with the kind of the communication staff, but also making sure that you're meeting the goals and objectives of your organization. So if there's senior leadership, if there's executive sponsors, if you will, for your work, I think that's critically important to have as a part of your team. I hope that you saw through many of those examples, and it got you thinking about how you can give context to your content. How can you really kind of give the narrative, provide the tour of that information, and give context to your content. And you saw many great examples of that. Big fonts used in clear simple language that gave context to this information. Another key thing here, and we didn't really talk about on that tour, is to really think about mobile first. Many statistics will show that visitors to government websites, the predominant browser is coming from mobile devices. So there's a lot of features and functions of Hub by default that allow this to be set up from a mobile first perspective. But when thinking about embedding content like dashboards, make sure to think about strategies to allow those to work well on mobile devices. And so, like for example, Experience Builder allows you to have a single URL that will detect if it's on a mobile device or not, and allows you to flip back and forth between kind of a desktop and mobile friendly version of a dashboard. So when working through building your hub sites, make sure to test them on mobile devices to make sure that you have a pleasant visiting experience for the community when they're coming and viewing your content. Another key message here is from the curation perspective, and really think of it as from the ABCs, right? Always be curating. I think that was another key lesson learned from many organizations here over the course of the response to COVID-19, and really almost a new role in WebGIS, as we were discussing with some of our Esri colleagues, is there's a really strong need from a curation perspective. How do you kind of keep this content fresh? How do you keep feeding hub sites? So if you're going to launch a hub site, there's almost a responsibility, if you will, to continue to keep that up to date with new and evolving content over time. So there's that strong need for that curation or librarian role from a curation perspective. So when planning your hub site, you're going to have to factor that in from a staff time perspective, making sure that there's some dedicated time on the schedule to make sure that the content is up to date, evergreen, as new information becomes available to meet the changing needs of the website as an issue evolves, as a disaster evolves, as a crisis evolves. So that curation part is really key. Another key thing to think about here is, the kind of governance, if you will, of ArcGIS Online organizations really extends, to Hub as well. That's simply a part of your, ArcGIS Online environment. So think, little things like categories and tags and group sharing are all kind of important considerations, and these ideas, extend out to Hub as well. So, for example, if you're going to have a private group with membership across multiple organizations, how does the governance of your existing ArcGIS Online site apply to that? Do you allow group members within inside your organization to join external groups in other organizations? So these are all important considerations to explore. So not certainly not the purpose of the presentation here, but some additional follow-ons to think about. And also the last point here is make sure to follow ArcGIS Online best practices. Even just little things like thumbnails and profiles become critically important from a hub site. and that's super important. And these are just some of the examples that kind of carry forth across many from an Arctis Online best practices perspective. So, in looking at thumbnails and profiles here specifically, here's a good example. Obviously, this is the Johns Hopkins dashboard, the most popular dashboard, in the world, and they've done a great job here from a profile perspective. They've got a good thumbnail. They've got a good description that describe it. The owner is clearly, identified here, a concise summary, good use of tags and categories, and the like. So this is, obviously, so it's almost like the metadata of, several years ago. This is, just some of the small things to kind of fill out that are critically important. And the reason why that is so important is some of these things will translate back on, hub sites. So the thumbnail and the description that are filled out in the items details page are what is leveraged here in a lot of the group galleries or in the cards here from a hub perspective. So that is why the thumbnail and the description are so critically important to have filled out, because as others register your content, or as you share content from your own organization, these are where it's manifested in terms of the importance, is that the thumbnail is leveraged in many other places. And the reason why the profile is important, and as our own team learned, and our others that are curating information, is if someone didn't have a thumbnail or good description, they'd often need to contact the item owner, and the profile was critically important to have filled out to be able to know where to go and who to contact if additional details are needed, or perhaps updates would need to be made to the description or thumbnail for it to work effectively in various hub sites. So the next topic that we want to transition here is to talk about ready to use initiatives. And so initiatives are an element of Hub. Really, these are kind of a bundle of apps, capabilities, and sites that are put together to help you get started quickly. What are the kind of cards and messagings that are kind of pulled together? And initiatives are one of the functions here of ArcGIS Hub. So there are many initiatives that already kind of exist. Some of the early ones were things like reducing homelessness, or Vision Zero, or tackling the opioid epidemic. As I mentioned, and we'll show here in a little bit, the new emergency response initiative was been released just a couple of weeks ago. For COVID-19 specifically, over the past couple of months, there were 4 specific initiatives that came out to help the community get going quickly with a lot of their COVID-19 initiatives. The first one was the coronavirus response. Additionally, we had recovery, business continuity, and the grocery store inventory. So 3 of these, work with and come with, Hub Basic. Coronavirus recovery, leverages the community org that we talked about a little while ago, and so that requires, Hub Premium. So next, let's get in and take a look at how these initiatives work and what they, look like, and we'll share a couple examples with you of solution initiatives in action and how you might be able to leverage those inside your own jurisdiction. Okay, here's the first solution initiative that we want to look at, the coronavirus response template. So this came out early on in the response to COVID-19. And to stand this up for your own jurisdiction, you can simply go into your app launcher here for Hub. If you've got the appropriate permissions inside your own organization. And what we can do here is we can launch a new initiative, and we'll browse the existing templates that are out here. So in this case, we'll activate the initiative for the coronavirus response. In a few minutes, we'll show the emergency response template as well. So we can click on activate here. You simply give your site a name. So for the purposes here, we can look at Boulder County. I'll hit go, and now what's going to happen is you can see here it's creating the site. It's setting up the additional collateral to go along with it, the associated groups for your team to kind of work across, setting up the specific cards, and kind of pulling all of that together here with inside your own organization. So just with a few clicks here, you're off and running with being able to start to configure this. And you can see by default, out of the box, this template's already wired to at the John Hopkins case information across the United States. A little gallery card here, symptoms, and some information that was pulled together in consultation with Dr. Esri Garrity, our chief medical officer here, that would be typical of what a public health agency would want to share with the public, and the social media cards and et cetera, et cetera. So to configure this, kind of further, some of the things that you might do in, editing once this is deployed is, start to filter out this case data to look at your specific, jurisdiction. Filter, apply filters to these cards to say only, show cases in, Boulder County based on the FIPS code or the name, or highlight local resources. Again, this is just a demonstration. This is not, what Boulder County put together, but highlight some real resources, in the area, looking at both state resources, county resources that were put together, obviously in the spirit of kind of putting your information in context, putting your apps and data in context. If you need to modify the message in consultation with your public health officials, you can certainly do that. Here's a part of the site, but it certainly can help you get started, modify and update, social media elements, et cetera, to kind of help you, get going. So again, with this particular solution initiative, see, it's pre-wired, it's set up in a specific set of ways. There's some additional kind of details and that you can follow to look at, how to configure this, kind of particular template. So this is, one quick way to get going with a hub site based on the needs from a coronavirus response perspective. As we mentioned, and really what we hope some of the things that you take away from this presentation is, how can you think about using Hub for the next disaster, the next crisis in your, organization? How can you be better prepared for the next challenges that may face us? So one of the ways that the team, hopes to empower you to be able to do this is through additional solution initiatives. So in this case, we're looking at the new emergency response initiative template that came out from the solutions team just a few minutes ago. And so in this case, I've configured this for a flooding example. I've put in and I've just simply modified the elements of the initiative that were laid down for our needs. So in this case, we've got, the summary information, the nice, theme to go along with it. Here, the statistics cards are pointing at, the relevant emergency management type content, the number of road closures, evacuation notices, open shelters, and the like. Now we're giving, giving context to the incident and what's going on. We can see here, emergency map. Traditionally, this may just be, and certainly we can link out to it here through this Learn More button, but many organizations have a public information map set up today. That's one of the existing solution templates. It's paired with inside this hub initiative template, but really the idea here is this gives it kind of more context. We can wrap additional information around this particular app given this particular event, and then link to other sources of information as well. If we want to have a very focused find open shelters app, if we want to engage through a community initiative, perhaps the volunteers within the community, to have them help in various ways, we can configure this particular hub site with the relevant social media feeds, whether that's from the local emergency management agency, the local weather service office, the state emergency management agency, and the like, whatever's appropriate for your jurisdiction. Provide a destination and a source to provide links to other apps, like reporting damage and leveraging citizens in the crowd to report in either damage information or cleaning up storm debris. Obviously also linking out to open data as appropriate, and then at the end brand with your agency's information, kind of contact information to really kind of put your stamp on this, if you will. But so very exciting and powerful capabilities to allow you to configure ArcGIS Hub for disasters and being able to leverage this quickly and provide just as in a way that have been done with many of the COVID-19 hub sites, a way for have a central location of information for maps, apps, data in context for disasters. So something certainly to think about and potentially leverage and be better prepared for as you think forward from a public safety perspective to be better prepared for the next event. Next, we want to talk about ArcGIS enterprise sites. So everything we've talked about so far is within ArcGIS Hub and ArcGIS Online, but a lot of the capabilities and a lot of the functionality that we've shown so far can be done in ArcGIS Enterprise as well. So ArcGIS Enterprise Sites, as it says here, is the capability that allows you to create customized websites and web pages to feature content from your own portal or ArcGIS Enterprise environment to your GIS users. So the same type of idea of getting information out, putting apps and data in context certainly applies to the ArcGIS Enterprise side as well. So here's just a quick architecture diagram to show that hey, ArcGIS Enterprise Sites is a part of this environment, is a attached to portal here, and gives you the same capabilities to create sites and pages with inside your ArcGIS Enterprise environment. So in other words, ArcGIS Enterprise Sites is really kind of a cousin to the hub and what we've talked about, so far through the course of this presentation. So next, I'm going to do a quick, demonstration to show you what this might look like from an ArcGIS Enterprise Sites perspective. Okay, so here we are in our ArcGIS Enterprise environment, and in a similar fashion to ArcGIS Online, we can simply go up here to our app switcher and now here and select Enterprise Sites. And this will take us into a very similar environment that you saw on the ArcGIS Hub side, but now obviously we're inside our ArcGIS Enterprise environment. And in this case, what I wanted to share with you today is an example that we've stood up from a business continuity perspective from an ArcGIS Enterprise Sites perspective. And really, one of the really important things here that we wanted to emphasize is that all of the same, functionality is here from an ArcGIS Enterprise Sites perspective that is in Hub Basic. So we've got, our summary statistic cards that we can apply, our map cards that we can apply, categories, video, social media, and the like. So all the same elements from a Hub Basic perspective are available to us here with inside the ArcGIS Enterprise sites perspective. So in this case, what we're looking at is an example of a hub site that we've configured from a inwardly facing kind of business continuity perspective. So the workflow here is as an organization, as a perhaps a private company or a large federal agency perhaps, if you've got an ArcGIS Enterprise environment, what is the types of information that you'd want to share broadly with your employees about this specific event, the coronavirus, right? So that's what we're looking at. We're seeing some of the messaging, the high level messaging from the CDC, specific elements here through cards and rows about what they're doing to help from an employee perspective and customers. Again, the idea of putting the maps and apps and data in context from a hub perspective here is brought forth in this example. We can see the notional set of offices and what their various statuses are, the number of offices that are open, the number of offices that are impacted and perhaps modified operations as a result of COVID-19. What are the offices that are still kind of closed? And again, this map and app and data is all kind of in context here from a business continuity perspective. Additional details where we can keep the employees up to date in terms of what's going on, what from a corporate perspective, from a business perspective, what is the posture that the organization is taking in response to COVID-19, not only in terms of shutting down, but perhaps with in terms of reopening as well. So the important thing here is that the same concepts of sharing information broadly can be applied from an enterprise perspective as well, and perhaps this is with your all your employees who may be logged in with Active Directory or their own kind of credentials, or maybe this is on a corporate intranet that's only available to employees on that kind of particular network. But the main thing that we wanted to highlight here is enterprise sites is a great way to share information broadly with inside your own organization if you have ArcGIS Enterprise, and that's something that you choose to use as a part of your information technology and information sharing, strategy. A lot of the great, same capabilities here are available from an ArcGIS Enterprise Sites perspective as well. So, in conclusion, here, hopefully, what you've seen today is how hub and enterprise sites can be used to share information, broadly with your appropriate, stakeholders or the public. And this slide here kind of compares, some of the features and functions across the different applications that we've seen today. So, obviously, with ArcGIS Hub, the basic license included with ArcGIS Online, sites and pages. Certainly, the premium ArcGIS Hub Premium adds in the community org and the ability to leverage that to engage stakeholders and essentially having additional ArcGIS Online identities as a part of the ecosystem environment to have others contribute. Certainly, there's other functions to create initiative templates as well. And then finally, enterprise sites, as you just saw, also brings along the ability to create sites and pages and the similar cards on the hub side. But obviously, this is within ArcGIS Enterprise, the IT, and obviously you would control and manage the IT environment here, kind of in this case. But across this spectrum, hopefully you've seen some examples and walk away with some ideas in terms of how you can leverage hub or enterprise sites to share information, broadly, put apps and data in context, and be better prepared for the next disaster or crisis or incident that you may face from a public safety emergency management perspective. So, in closing, a couple of additional things that we wanted to highlight. So, through this, user conference week, there's some additional sessions that are out there and available. A live session on Tuesday from the Hub team on collaborating and engaging with your community. Several additional on-demand sessions from our colleagues in professional services who have great experience in working with hubs with many of their users. So, both from Nick and Eric. So, look for those additional on-demand sessions. And then finally, as we were talking about governance and the importance of governance and extending those concepts of ArcGIS Online governance to Hub, there's a specific post-conference workshop on Thursday after the closing session with Bernie and team on how to extend the reach of your GIS using ArcGIS Online that I encourage you to attend as well. So those are some of the resources and Hub resources that are focused through the course of this user conference week. Additionally, there's hub resources that are out there and available to you through the Esri Academy and the Esri Training website. There's a learn path specifically on becoming a hub specialist. So there's about 9 or 10 elements that are part of that learn path, including a specific video that's about 40 minutes on quickly creating a coronavirus response site for your organization. So to kind of walking you through soup to nuts on how to put that together. Also from the Hub team, there's many tutorials on YouTube, a couple of playlists there for you to check out, a frequent monthly newsletter that you can subscribe to find, new information, and then, a user sites example. Just in a general sense, there's a gallery there that's a part of this, as well as the first slide that we mentioned, a COVID-19 specific gallery, and all of this to help you find, as the Hub team likes to say, your hub inspiration. So that concludes all of the information that we had to present in this session to you today. I thank you for your attendance. I thank you for your attention in watching this session. We hope that you find valuable information that you are able to leverage as a part of your work moving forward. And unfortunately, I wish we aren't able to be together in San Diego this year together, but I appreciate this virtual experience and then interacting with all of you, and look forward to seeing all of you again here very soon. So with that, that ends our session, and thank you very much for attending. Have a good day.